All right, folks. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is day 2 of the Indigenous Innovations, the Access of Food, Energy, Water Systems workshop. We had a wonderful opening session yesterday. Over 120 participants of the 350 plus who are registered joined us for an opening prayer by Avery Denny and welcoming words from the president of Diné College and the dean of the STEM program at Diné College. And we heard from all of our co-PIs who are participating in this. So thank you to everyone who participated yesterday and for the very warm welcome. Today, we are talking about Indigenous FEWS, Indigenous Food, Energy, Water Systems, past practices and innovations. So we're going to hear from each of the 3 NRT programs that are participating. And I will get to those introductions in just a minute. What I would like to say is that we're hoping to take some pictures of all of the participants during this. So, so as we segue into the break, right around 11 a.m. PDT Pacific time, we'd love to have everybody who's willing turn on their cameras, turn on your video for a moment so that we can get a screenshot and try to take some pictures of all the participants. So that being said, I'll just give you a quick rundown. What's going to happen today is each of our programs are going to have 25 minutes to present what they're doing at the Food, Energy, Water Nexus and talk about their partnerships. And then we'll have 5 minutes for quick Q&A, just clarifying stuff before we'll move on to the next program. After the first 2 programs have presented, we'll have a break. Hopefully we'll get that photo as we leave for break. And then we'll come back and we'll hear from the 3rd participating NRT. And then we'll have broad Q&A opened up and we can discuss synergies and the challenges and achievements across participants. So that's how it's going to go. I would like to start by introducing Dr. Maya Trotz of University of South Florida. She is the co-PI, the PI for the Systems Training for Research on Geography-Based Coastal Food, Energy, Water Systems. And it was rebranded as Strong Coast. And they partner with the University of Virgin Islands Strong FEWS program. So thank you, Dr. Trotz.
Thank you and welcome everyone. On behalf of the Collaborative NRT Strong Coast program, led by the University of the Virgin Islands and the University of South Florida, I bring you greetings and thank yous to the organizers of and participants in this Co-Infuse workshop. The Strong Coast NRT fosters food, energy, and water solutions with coastal communities. Our project integrates engineering infrastructure, the environment, sociocultural context, and considers their interactions rather than an assembly of isolated parts. We take the view of resource recovery where traditional waste products become value-add products. And in multiple reef-to-ridge locations, we're identifying leverage points for food, energy, and water using a systems thinking framework. Our team members gain experience integrating sociocultural dynamics and meaningful engagement of community stakeholders in the US Virgin Islands, Barbados, Belize, and Tampa, connected through our seas of culture and also through this hurricane season that we are now in. We focus on building a new generation of globally competent STEM practitioners and scholars. Our interdisciplinary team includes anthropologists and civil and environmental engineers from the University of Florida, University of South Florida, and marine scientists from the University of the Virgin Islands. Here's just a picture of some of our faculty, staff, and advisory board members. In terms of our fellows, our first cohort started in January 2019, and we're currently just starting our second cohort, and this is just a picture of some of the students who will be popping in and out of this workshop this week. Yesterday are in a course on Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time. Our NRT has 4 objectives around themes of systems thinking, food, energy, and water systems, community engagement, and professional development for both students and faculty. This presentation, which will be done by both myself and Dr. Rebecca Zargar, who's a co-PI from anthropology, we're going to focus on 4 new courses that we developed over the last 2 years. And these all have a systems thinking undercurrent. For systems thinking, our objective is to provide resource and training for interdisciplinary and systems-based teaching and research that results in original and impactful work. And systems thinking, according to the students, could be described as a set of gears, and there are various components, and they're all interconnected and all quite important. This first slide is what we call our weekly Strong Coast Engage seminar. It's not for credit. It started in January 2019. We bring in faculty mentors, advisory board members, do workshops in various topics. But most importantly, our program research specialist, who was also the program coordinator, Dr. Christine Proudy at the time, led the group through this systems thinking and practice free course that's online to sort of get the students and faculty all on the same page of sort of this idea of systems thinking. So that occurred last January. She's no longer with us, but our hope going forward is that the students who've gone through now 4 courses of systems thinking would be able to mentor the next group in starting through the systems thinking and practice. And I'll hand it over now to Dr. Zargar to talk about some of the other courses that we've started.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks, Maria, for that great introduction. As we mentioned yesterday, I'm an environmental anthropologist, and one of the things that anthropology contributes to our NRT is a perspective that has a focus on holism, but with an emphasis on what we might think of as social and cultural dynamics. So we're very eager to integrate local history and politics and power into our analysis of food, energy, water systems. And I think, as we saw yesterday in a lot of the discussion, those things are of utmost importance in understanding how food, energy, and water function together, and how they might also be improved as far as sustainability. So our class that we designed, and it was co-designed with 4 faculty, which was, I think, a learning experience in and of itself. But our course is designed to understand how systems thinking varies across disciplines, from environmental anthropology to engineering and many disciplines in between. And we're particularly interested in having students engage in various types of complex systems modeling, both conceptual and more traditional dynamic systems modeling, to really visualize problems and look for the ways the social and cultural factors intersect with biophysical and engineered environments. And in this course, we had primarily engineering and anthropology students, but we also had students from other disciplines as well, environmental policy, ecology, and others. So we all learned a great deal in that experience. And we're going to be offering that course again soon. Next slide. And right now, students are involved in a more kind of advanced systems modeling course around food, energy, water systems. And this is a little snapshot of a homework assignment from Dr. Zhang, who is one of the co-PIs on our NRT. And as you can see, there are sort of parameters that are established for looking at the sort of epidemiological aspects of the coronavirus. This is one of the most recent assignments that they were working on. So students become familiar with stock flow diagrams and also other types of analysis of specific variables and looking at how that affects the overall system. One of the other things that we are particularly excited about with regards to our NRT is the Global FEWS field training course that we started for the first time 1 year ago. Last year, we held that course in Belize, and you can see this is our team of in-country collaborators, NRT fellows, and community members are all on the slides you see here. And students gained experience in both qualitative research data collection, learning really classic anthropological techniques like participant observation, active listening, and match those with a lot of detailed information and experiences around marine coastal environments and food, energy, water linkages there, and how that connected through this ridge to reef perspective that Maya has already discussed into the Maya Mountains of Belize, which is where a lot of the Maya communities are located. And our trips included becoming familiar with some of the wastewater treatment facilities that you see here on offshore keys in Belize. And the image you see here also highlights one of our I guess, favorite community partners with the Seaweed Farming Cooperative, and shows the cultivation of seaweed. And this is Mr. Godfrey here showing us what that looks like on an offshore key, and then how those are then tested by some of our NRT fellows here, Daniel, Michelle, and Estenia, in the lab back at USF for various heavy metals and other kinds of contaminants. And these are also being sourced for personal care products and also for consumption locally in Placencia. And our students are interested in how to make that process sort of emphasize safety precautions and more sustainability for micro enterprises. And then one of the other things we did, we traveled to the sort of ridge area of our study site in southern Belize, and we partnered with a nonprofit. It's called Yaxche Conservation Trust. For those who were on yesterday, I mentioned this as well. And Yaxche works closely with over a dozen Maya, Kekchi and Mopan Maya villages that are in southern Belize. We held a collaborative workshop with them so we could do a kind of knowledge exchange around the topics of food, energy, and water in southern Belize, and how that is changing over time, and what some of the various pressures are with regards to food production and food scarcity in times of natural disaster, and then, you know, as they're experiencing now due to COVID. So students were able to gain firsthand experience in hearing about the Yaxche organization's work with Maya farmers to create kind of an approach that I think is very respectful and really places Indigenous knowledge kind of in the forefront, as far as understanding that traditional practices that have been you know, passed down from generation to generation over many hundreds and thousands of years are inherently sustainable. And the organization is interested in understanding how some of the pressures that families encounter today with regards to logging or deforestation, or sort of economic pressures to make a living using a variety of different approaches. These new approaches, such as an Inga alley cropping project that they've been working on for cacao, biogas, and other projects are ways to kind of leverage the Indigenous knowledge and practice, and then potentially incorporate some new and different technologies that could also be useful to those farmers. And so these are some shots from a farm visit that we did in San Miguel, which is in Toledo District. And we were very fortunate to also have the opportunity to learn to make tortillas and caldo while we were there, which is a really sort of important and key cultural practice in my communities in Belize.
We also have projects in Barbados, and I look at show this slide from one of our other graduate students in our program, Winella Isaacs, but one of our NRT fellows, Alex Webb, is going to be working in Barbados and is awaiting sort of hopefully a Fulbright fellowship to assist with this. But in a country that has lots of drought, the water utility has started a program to look at implementing potable storage at the household level. So this is sort of unique in terms of a utility actually stepping behind, within the residential gate. In East Tampa in Florida, a high percentage of African Americans living there. One of our fellows, Maya Carrasquillo, has been looking at green infrastructure and issues of environmental and social justice as it relates to management of that infrastructure. And then in the Virgin Islands, our fellow Michelle Henderson, again, dealing with issues of drought and limited production of local food on St. Thomas at least, is interested in looking at this idea of, water reuse for agricultural production. And she's in the process of now doing the virtual Zoom interviews for her research. Professional development in science policy and communication. We mentioned this yesterday. I'm just putting up some more slides, including the names of some of the resources that we've used to train our students. Again, this is something that students identified as, things they would really like to do more of and learn how to do. And then on the right, you see a poster. So we're also communicating with the persons who we work with. And in Placencia, we hosted a few community meetings. And then at the end, a final community meeting to sort of share all that the students did, including the systems models that they developed and created then. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. And Dr. Zarga and I would be able to answer any questions. I'm going to leave this up here with some quotations from some of our fellows in terms of sort of what they're taking away from this program, especially this interdisciplinary component working with anthropology and a transdisciplinary working with community. I think we have time for questions now. And if we don't have any questions, we could possibly just move on to the second presentation.
Here's a question from Alice.
I'm curious, Rebecca talked about conducting anthropologic type interviews over Zoom. How does that work?
Is Chrisanne or Michelle Platts on? They start tomorrow. Let me see for a minute if Chrisanne is on. Or
oh, hi, yes, it's Chrisanne, I'm on. So, or if Dr. Zarga wants to chime in first, whichever one.
Oh no, go ahead, Chrisanne.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, as Dr. Trotz mentioned, myself as well as another FEWS fellow, Michelle, we start our interviews tomorrow because we're doing a project looking at coral reef restoration as well as the stony coral tissue loss disease and how that's being kind of impacted and viewed through various perspectives down in the Florida Keys. So one of the ways that we've really been modifying, especially with Corona going on, is that we've shifted our face-to-face interviews to online. So we're either using Google Meets or sometimes Zoom, whether the organization has allowed Zoom as a platform for them or not. So when it comes to conducting the interviews, although it's different where we can't really see someone in person, we're still able to ask our same interview questions and modify our guidelines. So when it came down to it, we were actually working on this last night, so excellent question, where we actually went back through all of her questions just to make sure that they were appropriate for our online setting. Because as part of it, we had questions where it mentioned, can you point out where this specific monitoring technology could be implemented in the space? Well, we can't really do that online, unfortunately. But when it comes to conducting anthropologic interviews online, it's very much still the same, where we can still ask the same questions. We can still generate that conversation to kind of gain that knowledge from whoever we're interviewing. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Chrisanne. And I should mention that the FEWS course that Dr. Zargar and Mihalsik and others taught in this spring, one of the deliverables for the fellows was an interdisciplinary challenge grant. Oh no, they taught the class last fall. And then our fellows had to put in these interdisciplinary challenge grants, which we budgeted into our NRT. And Chrisanne is anthropology, Michelle Platts, Chrisanne Hines is anthropology, Michelle Platts is engineering, environmental engineering. And so their project got, funding, which would send them to the Keys and so on. And they've been able to adjust the IRB so that they do the online versions. And so Michelle Henderson is the next one who will be doing this.
So we have another question. Cara, should we wait to the group session or do you want to ask it now?
Well, we have 8 minutes left in terms of our time budget, so I think it would be reasonable to address one more question before we go to the next program, which is you.
Okay, so Dennis Best, you asked about long-term solutions.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
great. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm joining late, but I just wanted to get perspective, I guess, the question about sort of the sustainability and the technical capacity over time. And I'm just curious, in the projects that you're engaging in, sort of how do you balance what I think is this sort of trade-off in between sort of a very, near-term solution in affordable energy versus like a longer-term or affordable FEWS system over like a longer term, transformational process, and just wanted to get your feedback on the guidance for how you see that in the programs that you're engaging in, and sort of how do you educate your team around that and how you consider that.
Maya, did you want to take that or do you want me to jump in on that one?
I think we could both take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I could start, and Dr. Zargar will follow up. In terms of long-term, I think we both, many of us come from this standpoint that we're investing in places where we've already established partnerships and they're growing. And Dr. Zargar will talk about working in Belize for over 20 years. I'm originally from Guyana, so very embedded in sort of the Caribbean, and been in Tampa 15 years and quite embedded in communities here. Many of us at the faculty are. And so it's plugging our fellows in to these scenarios where they have a limited time of building those relationships. And so I think what we're trying to do is bring our experience to that. And we had previous grants, an NSF PIRE grant, that did allow us to start some of these collaborations. And it's really, the NRT comes out of our experience in Belize, where it was the first time that you had the different disciplines all working in one location out of the PIRA. And this is how we came up with these new projects and the idea of interdisciplinary courses and sort of everyone focusing on these areas for generating case studies and so on. We are looking at additional funding mechanisms that help to build not just us, but our partners up. And so, in Belize, there's the University of Belize. In Barbados, there's the University of the West Indies. And so how do you actually start to build the educational support systems, but also what's in the community, the NGOs, community-based organizations, and we're getting different experiences because in Barbados, we're in on a large project with the utility funded through the Green Climate Fund, put in through the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, who's one of our partners. They're based in Belize. And that was for $27.5 million in a project there to sort of look at water sector resilience. So we're sort of seeing this as a long haul. We've put in for a university proposal that just got, we have funding right now to look at how do we turn this into a center at the university. I think many of us in NRT programs are really looking at how do you make these things sustainable. And I'll stop there and ask Dr. Zargar to add on.
Yeah, just building on what you were saying, Maya, I think the long-term commitment is really key to making a project and a collaborative project like this work. Maya and I have also been working together for many of those years, as well as a lot of the other faculty co-PIs and mentors. And I think that the idea of building, faculty, fellow community is really at the heart of our NRT. And we try to kind of pursue that in many different ways, many different aspects of students, both academic and sort of outside of academic lives too. One other thing that I would say that I feel like our approach is, it's a kind of a novel collaboration for anthropology and engineering to be working together in this way. But I think one of the things that has been really interesting about that collaboration is a commitment to the idea of justice, whether that's social justice or environmental justice, and seeing that as a thread that runs through our projects. Given the theme of this conference, I think it's important to emphasize that any collaboration that going forward, new projects that would happen with Maya communities would be discussed extensively over long periods of time, vetted with all different groups, from Maya leaders to community sort of mayors, alcaldes, and lots of different local and national organizations in between, for example, in Belize. So that approach is taken in all the sites where we work, where it's very much situating ourselves as a potential resource, as a collaborator, but that local communities, local people, whether it's East Tampa or whether it's Maya communities in Southern Belize, they're experts and have the kind of opportunity to take a lead in developing a project if that is something that they're interested in doing with some of the skill sets that our team provides. So I think that perspective is one that we've been sort of cultivating and developing with our fellows and them with each other. And that's been something that has been really exciting for me to see and being involved with this project.
And I just want to mention that we do have fellows who are working in coastal communities that are not the 4 that we identified. And so we are also looking at how do we, take examples that we have here and bring in the work that they're doing in, say, Madagascar. And I'm thinking of Adeline Burke and Martha McAllister, who are going to be working on that project, or who are working on that project. And so being able to leverage all of these different experiences that our fellows are having to sort of build this idea of strong coasts is really critical for just not the fellows, but for the faculty.
Thank you for your responses. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Zargar and Dr. Trotz, for presenting on Strong Coasts and your partnership and all the incredible things that are happening with your fellows. I would like to introduce our next NRT. It's the STEM Training for Actionable Research and Global Impact from the University of California, Berkeley's Blum Center. And Dr. Agagino and Dr. Perez are going to present about their program, which is in collaboration with the Pinoleville Pomo Nation, and Angela James, who's the vice chair, will be co-presenting with them. So I will turn it over to you. Who, Alice or Yale?
Yale. Hi, everyone. And we also have Michelle Baker from the EPA, who's joining our session today. I'm very excited to be here with you all, and there's so many of us here together, so it is uplifting. And being here, a peculiar expression for the present circumstances that we are sharing. There is no really here. In a Zoom gathering, there are many here as we are in attendance. Rather than assuming an undefined abstract ritual here, these many heres, many locations we are in, compel me to acknowledge all the more strongly that the here has a name and a history. So I'm speaking from Berkeley, situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Ohlone people, and I'm saddened by not being on the Navajo land today as we originally planned. My name is Yael Perez, and I'm a researcher at the Blum Center and the FEWS program coordinator at UC Berkeley. The Blum Center is a multidisciplinary research unit on campus focused on education, research, and leadership for equitable society. My professional background includes a PhD in architecture, but no expertise in Indigenous scholarship. Moreover, as you may hear in my accent, and you may see, I'm neither American nor native to any land. In fact, if I trace back my roots, looking up at least 3 generations above me, which I can trace back, and looking down at my kids, each of us were unrooted and rerouted, some by choice and some by necessity. And each started their life in a new country, with a new language, with a new culture, at least once in their lifetime, often 2 or more. So I'm sharing this with you because I believe this is what drew me to work with the Pinot-le-Villepomene Nation, from whom we will hear shortly. In particular, I remember walking with the chairperson of the Pinot-le-Villepomene Nation, Leona Williams, and hearing her expressing the deep feeling she had for this land on which her ancestor had been walking for many generations back. Hearing her helped me reflect on myself and my relationship to my past and my own positionality working with Indigenous communities. I believe each of us here, one way or another, holds such longing. So I might say that envy, and I'll make sure I'm in the right screen. So I might say that envy drew me to this collaboration, and I have been fortunate to have been exposed to that knowledge, which is based on deep relationship with the land, culture, and nature. To help us consider here throughout the week how institutions can work more closely and effectively with community partners on food, energy, and water system, and especially collaborate with Indigenous communities, with the Indigenous community representatives, I will present briefly our collaboration with the Pinot-le-Villepomene Nation. As you will hear different perspectives on the collaboration from me, from the Vice Chair of the Pinot-le-Villepomene Nation, Angela James, and Michelle Baker, who works for the EPA Region 9, I'd like you all to think with me how we can stretch further the institutional boundaries we are each part of. And we had some conversation about it yesterday, and how we could bring in to the institution, or bring in more Indigenous knowledge and community partnerships. So there are several levels of partnership on each side. And in the past 12 years of this collaboration, the partnership has changed each of us, and has changed the institution, and and that is the most encouraging part for me, to see the institution change. On the Berkeley side, we started as a group of students and faculty called CARES, originally acronym of Community Assessment of Renewable Energy and Sustainability, a long name, led by Professor Alice Agugino, with the goal to develop together with the communities pathways to sustainable living. As the institution grew to recognize the value of community outreach, we found ourselves part of the Blum Center, which educates students and supports faculty and researchers to develop the knowledge, technologies, and solutions to build a more sustainable, just, and equitable society. And I'll present briefly some of the program. The Blum Center has been fostering and supporting these innovative collaborations with Indigenous communities through initiatives at different academic levels. At the undergraduate level, the Global Poverty and Practice, GPP minor, gives students an opportunity to examine contemporary forms of poverty, wealth, and inequality through academic coursework and practical experience. Through GPP, students from across academic disciplines come together to think critically about issues of poverty and inequality, and investigate the ways in which the minor can supplement their major field of study. Central to this minor is a 6-week field work opportunity, the practice experience, in which students connect theory with action by partnering with non-governmental or community organization, government agency, or other development programs, domestically or abroad. The Blum Center offers funding support for students' practice experience through competitive fellowship. In the past 3 years, we had about 15 students who work with indigenous communities in California as part of their practice experience. At the graduate level, we have the Development Engineering Program, an interdisciplinary training program that launched in 2014 for UC Berkeley graduate students who aim to use technology to address the needs of underserved and low-resource communities. With the DevEng, as we call it, we have a special focus area on food, energy, and water systems, which is the program we partnership today for this workshop. While the program supports students working in many locations, we have had several students, graduate students, working with indigenous communities locally and globally. The third program is Big Ideas Competition and Innovation Contests that provide up to $300,000 in funding, training, networks. Every year since 2006, Big Ideas has given recognition to interdisciplinary teams of students who have transformative solutions to real-world problems. So this is part of the programs within the institution that help support this collaboration. This is our initial team and some of the undergrad and graduate students and Ryan Shelby that were working with us at the beginning. To make all these institutional structures more concrete, here is how the program came to play in the collaboration with the Pinot-Laville Nation. We have been working with the PPN Housing Department, Environmental Department, and Education Department. The PPN has secured several grants for low-income housing, and we have worked together on designing these prototype houses. In the process, we learn about co-design, sustainability, and many technologies for sustainable living. Our joint project grew from conversations we had literally on the ground, and on that same day when Leona Williams, the PPN chairperson, shared the history of the land and her vision to build a living culture center which would house a cultural practice as well as repatriated artifact, I suggested that we do an international design competition and test how designer architects can use technology to learn about a land and a culture which they are not familiar with. So we have actually this picture from the prototype house and now on the Pinot-Laville Pomo Nation Reservation. This is a bit about the process of co-design and the academic results from it on co-design. This is a master program that looked at the comfort, the indoor air quality and comfort level within the houses. And this is the international design competition, and the winner that was part of my dissertation, which was co-advised by Professor Alice Agugino. More recently, we have joined the environmental department with undergraduate and graduate students on waste management project and riparian planting. And on Thursday, we will hear more from the education director of the PPN, Chao Q, on STEAM education initiative. I have this one slide for that. So many of us here are part of the higher education of a higher education institutions. And being part of an educational institution is a privilege and a responsibility. By educating students who will become professionals, we have the power to change the future of the indigenous communities and the future of the scientific community as well. The success of this change is built on many individual relationships established through this program. the POMO youth in some of the education program with UC Berkeley students, but also me and you, Angela, and the ways we can take this joint work as a tool to shape the different institutions, academic, EPA, or tribal government, to be better at serving the community needs. And I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on how we can continue to do that and do that better. So I'll move from here to Angela James, the Vice Chair of the Pinoleville Pomo Nation. Thank you.
Angela, you may need to demute.
Is Angela still here? I can't find her in my queue. She might be rejoining.
Why don't you go on to Michelle Baker?
Is Michelle here?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Michelle. Hi.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Yael, and everyone who has organized this. And I will just start and talk a little bit also about Pinoleville Pomo Nation. But before I do that, introduce myself. I'm Michelle Baker with EPA Region 9, which our office is based out of San Francisco. And my current role is a disaster recovery coordinator working with the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas Islands in the Pacific, which they're located east of the Philippines and north of Papua New Guinea. But I'm here today to talk about work that I'm still involved in, but work within EPA that we were more heavily involved with during the time that CARES had started at UC Berkeley, and while Pinoleville Pomo Nation was in the process of doing this co-design work and thinking about new ways of building. So a little background about EPA Region 9. We work with the states of California, Arizona, Nevada, and 148 tribes, and also 6 tribal consortia. Within the context of sustainable development work, our role is mostly collaboration with partners and mobilizing and coordinating resources. A little background of our work with tribes around green building and sustainable development is, tribes possess a nationhood status and retain inherent powers of self-governance. And through this process about 10 years ago, we had actually learned that a lot of tribes at the time did not have their own building codes. And for any federal funding that was coming their way, they were usually deferring to state codes. And tribes actually had a lot more interest in building more sustainably than the actual state codes, but they didn't have their own codes. So EPA's work was really initially supporting Pinoleville Pomo Nation was one of the first tribes that we worked with in providing funding to for them to develop their own building codes. And I think to back up a little bit regarding the built environment and its environmental impacts and why EPA is involved to begin with. This is some old data, but I don't think it's changed much. The built environment has huge impacts. About nearly 40% of US energy use and the carbon dioxide emissions, about 10% of fresh water usage. And it's also health-wise, Americans in particular spend nearly 90% of their time indoors. And just thinking of this sheltering in place moment that we're having in time, that could actually be a lot higher. So thinking of indoor air quality, and also just solid waste materials generated, about 66% of solid waste generated in the United States is from the built environment. So that's kind of a background of EPA's involvement in looking at green building in general. So getting back to our work with tribal nations, about 10 years ago, we were really focusing more on this, and tribes came to us. We have these regional tribal operation committee meetings, and we were approached by several environmental directors in Region 9, particularly from Mendocino County, where Pinoleville Pomo Nation is. And they actually approached us more about weatherization. There was a lot of emphasis at the time around that, and the tribes were interested in engaging EPA to help coordinate trainings and resources for weatherization. And that really evolved. And at a time we were more curious of like, well, what are tribes' interest in green building and sustainable building practices? So in 2010, we collaborated with the Intertribal Council of Utility Policy to do a survey, because they were able to do surveys. And of all the tribes who responded, energy conservation was the 100%. Every single respondent said that that was a priority for their community. Renewable energy was second, and then water conservation was third. About 88% of respondents were interested in finding ways to conserve water. So in taking that information, we had worked with developing a work group, the Tribal Green Building Codes Work Group, which was a national work group, including tribes from all across the country, architects, other advisors. And in 2015, because it takes a while, we developed, in collaboration with all these partners, the Green Building Toolkit specifically for tribes. So it was the EPA Tribal Green Building Toolkit. And if folks on the call are interested, we'll definitely have that as a resource for you to look at. And Pinoleville Pomo Nation was very active, their environmental staff, in providing input and insights into this toolkit as well. And the themes for the toolkit, in surveying tribal partners, land use was a topic that they're very interested in, material and resource conservation, human health, energy and renewable energies, water, and also resilience and adaptation, as well as affordability. So these were things that we looked at. And let's see, going to the next slide. For me, anyway. I can share these with folks later if they're...
Oh, Michelle, I don't think we see any of your slides.
Right, yeah, I'm realizing I'm gonna be able to provide these to folks later. I just developed them for myself when I
see, because people are asking. I'll close anyway my slides.
Yeah,
I think we also have Angela with us now.
Okay. This is perfect timing, because this is the last point that I wanted to make, is in working with the Pinoleville Pomo Nation, and with whatever support that we provided, and also just thinking of the food, energy, water systems nexus. Certainly Pinoleville, so in construction of these homes, they had used, rice straw, which is a byproduct of a food source, and just thinking about all the energy and water that went into growing, the rice, and then taking the straws from that, which had usually been a waste product that was burned. They took that to construct the houses that I believe Angela may be talking about. And within that, you know, creating straw bale from the rice straw in a way that took advantage of its thermal properties and constructed in a way to reduce energy consumption for the home. So I guess in other words, I just see this as a really elegant example of the food, energy, water systems from a kind of a regional level. So just wanted to end on that note, and definitely happy to share slides after the fact, and sorry I couldn't get them to you before.
Great, thanks a lot, Michelle. And we'll hear Angela's perspective, just to give a good, the different perspective on the collaboration and how different institutions should come together to make this project real. So I'm sorry we lost you earlier, Angela, and I'm glad to have you here.
We're having some technical difficulties over here, but I'm back. So good morning, everyone. My name is Angela James, and I serve as the vice chairperson here at Pinoleville Pomo Nation. And I've served in that position for 26 years now. So today I just wanted to share a little bit about our collaboration with UC Berkeley CARES program, and discussing our co-design of our culturally inspired sustainable homes that we built here on the reservation. So it's been, I believe 2008 was our first meeting. I was racking my brain here trying to remember that. So 2008, I was invited to a class, and I believe it was Professor Alice Agagino's class. And in the beginning of our process, we had an environmental director by the name of David Edmonds, and he was working here at our tribe, and he made the initial introduction. And so we went and we visited the campus and the class. And just to share a brief story about it, in the beginning, when he had mentioned it to me to visit the class, he said, oh, I have this class that they want to meet the tribe, but they would like to meet the tribe and or meet you first and see how to approach Native people, I believe was his words. And that took me back, and I was like, approach Native people, what does that mean? And so I was kind of standoffish about it because, you know, I was raised by my grandfather, and he was a fountain of information of our local history and history of Native people. And he shared a lot of the things that happened in our local community that, you know, a lot of racism and stuff that went on. And I think for Native people, just the trust of trusting institutions is sometimes difficult. And so with that being said, I had to put, you know, those thoughts aside and do what was best in my elected official capacity. So I agreed to go to the campus, and we met with some students and staff, and it wasn't at all what I was thinking. You know, it was more they wanted to know how to approach Native people in a respectful manner, and they just wanted to know some cultural norms. And so it was a good meeting, good first meeting. And so from that point, we did some collaboration on these culturally inspired homes, and working with the College of Engineers at UC Berkeley, and also the oh, I just lost it. Anyways, Yale's department, she was a student at that time, Yale. And I also wanted to mention Ryan Shelby. He was also a student, architecture, School of Architecture.
I was in architecture, yeah, and Ryan in engineering.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's how our relationship began with with the CARES program in UC Berkeley. And so from that point, we went to, we gathered our community of our youth, elders, and then some adult members. We gathered, and some of the UC Berkeley students came to Ukiah, and we met. And instead of, it was a different kind of meeting. Instead of, you know, with tribes, sometimes you're so used to whether you're working through grant funding, you know, you're kind of told how it's going to look or what's going to be done, and not often do you get to put your input in. And mostly I'm referring to HUD funding. And for the longest time with our tribe, we took a look at our HUD housing, and our HUD housing, you know, what most tribes know, you know, it's kind of just like a box. And a lot of times our Native people, we don't believe in putting our elders in convalescent homes. So sometimes we have multi-generation families living in one house. Sometimes maybe, you know, my sister's family or my brother's family might need a place to stay. So we all
Am I the only one having difficulty hearing?
Yeah.
I wonder if Angela can hear us. Angela, if you can hear us, would you consider turning off your video, please? And that might help with the bandwidth and allow your voice to come through.
Do we want to take a...
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. We hear you, Angela. Or not.
Angela, interrupt me if you connect. This is Alice. Just wanted to say thank you for all the decade-long collaboration, and the faculty and the staff and the students who worked with you have learned quite a bit. The course you came in with was called Human-Centered Design. And so we had an interactive process of working with the students in the community to understand what was most important to them and build solutions to meet what they thought was most important. So thank you.
I'll try to connect to Angela over the phone. And maybe we're gonna move ahead and then reconsider where we are.
I think so. You guys have, you're in, it's 11 o'clock and we said 11 to 11:05. We do a little specific Q&A. And I believe that Maya Trotz has a question. Maya, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure, thank you. I posted two, but the question is in terms of many of the communities that we work with, I could speak of here in Tampa, housing is sort of one of the most important things that they mention. And so rather than reinvent the wheel, how do we build synergy with the different NRT programs and be able to partner using your experience? And I had another question on the HUD program. Is it the same in your community where once new housing comes, it sort of open up into this national lottery program? Because we found here that many people who lived in places that have been rehabilitated sort of have to reapply to get in, but it's a national type of places that they've lived in for decades.
I'll start and you can continue on it. The housing that we developed was culturally sensitive, sustainable housing. And so it looked at sustainability, but also looked at cultural relevance. Wanted to get people that would work in the house. It was a straw bale home with mud on the outside of it and artistic features that were identifiable by the tribe. And so they wanted someone that would appreciate that and also take care of the sustainable house. Yael, do you want to add anything as the architect there?
And Angela will try to call in and see if she can be heard, but maybe we'll move on and.
Mhm.
But I think Maya asked a good question about collaboration across the NRTs. And so one thing that we need to look at is what is generalizable and what was very specific to that community. And I would say that the straw bale houses that we co-designed and co-built, in fact, I learned how to build a straw bale house as part of this process, as did all members of our team, was very specific, I think, to this region that wanted natural materials. But I think the process is what we're looking at that's generalizable in terms of understanding what the features are, what the design attributes ought to be, and how to move forward to co-design and co-develop. Cara, we usually have a break in the middle. Will we have a break here?
So if you're done responding to the question, I want to say thank you to you and Yael and Angela and Michelle for presenting on that program. And so if we could, as we segue into a 10-minute break, which will be from 11:05 to 11:15, if everybody who's willing, will you please turn on your video right now, and we will try, I will unpin the speaker, and we will try to get a big, get several pictures of everybody who's attending. I'd be very, very glad to see as many people turning on their videos as possible, and we'll take some screenshots and try to get a sense of everyone who's joining us. And then we'll move on to break, and then we'll reconvene at 11:15 Pacific time. Not seeing a lot of people willing to turn on their cameras. It's understandable. That's all fair.
It's just
Right. Well, good photo ops.
Okay.
All right. All right, folks. Well, we're going to leave the Zoom on during the break, and we'll reconvene at 11:15, and we'll hear from Dr. Carletta Chief and Benita Litzen on the Indigifuse NRT with University of Arizona and Diné College. Thank you.
Thanks, Cara.
So people are welcome to chat with each other as well during this break.
And to unmute themselves.
Hello, good morning. I was wondering if Benita Litzen is on the line from Diné College. Okay. Thank you.
Carletta, I don't see Benita yet. I saw her earlier,
Okay.
but I don't see her right now. I'm sorry.
Selena, if you're on here, can you call Benita at her office and see if you can get her online?
Hello. Yael?
Hi, Angela. We're just on a
Hi.
break, but would
Yeah.
love to hear you. There's still people around, and we'll maybe.
Yeah.
How's your connection now?
I'm on my phone now. I don't know what's going on with all of it, but
Let me
I even tried a different computer
close
and
my
it still
door.
didn't.
Do you wanna share with us a bit of your perspective while we're? I
Sure.
would love to hear it. While the connection is good, and we have a bit more than 5 minutes until everyone reconvenes, so that's better than
Okay.
nothing.
Yeah. So let's see. Where did I get cut off? Do you know where I got cut off at?
Yeah, you mentioned how it was difficult at the beginning to come to campus,
Oh, okay.
and when you joined the class, it seemed different than what you imagined.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much where the relationship started, and then the community work started. We set up some meetings with our community, elders, adults, and some youth. And then we sat down and brainstormed. We talked about all the needs of the community. And from that, it was a good session. Everybody participated, and the Berkeley students went back to campus, and then within, I would say, about a week, came back with all of the ideas into one spot, and it was really nice. It was nice because the community got to put their input in, and it wasn't, just being told what you were going to do. Let's see.
And what do you think can maintain this kind of collaboration, maybe enhance them? What do you think the institution can learn?
I think one thing that from this whole experience is definitely the community, the engagement, building that relationship, building that trust relationship, and being open to hearing the cultural part, cultural sensitivity, and just learning about the community that you're entering into first and foremost. And then also something that I thought was very helpful in our relationship building was the invitations that were offered to us to bring our youth to campus, because a lot of times some of our youth don't even ever leave the reservation. And so just to get them thinking about, oh, I can be here, I can attend this university, I can further my education. And I think that was the best part of it, was seeing the youth engaged like that. And then also we had some classes and fun activities that the students provided to our youth here. The students came up to Ukiah again and engaged our youth with some science projects, wind energy projects, everything, STEM projects. And that was really, really nice to see. And it made them comfortable. They got to know the students, and they were beginning to trust. And then as of recent, we also do the STEAM summer programs for junior high and high school students, and that's still with the UC Berkeley students who come up for the summer. Last 2 summers, it was a 3-week summer program, and or maybe it was longer than that. I don't remember the exact time, but just
3 weeks.
Engaging our community like that too. And it's hands-on. Our youth love that. And then also the collaboration with developing plans for our living cultural center that the tribe is looking into. Just during our planning sessions, we at the tribe, we didn't care for how, most museums you go into, you can't touch anything. We wanted to create what we're calling a living cultural center, where the cultural, whether it's basketry or learning to make acorn mush or skinning a deer, we want to be able to have our youth or anybody come in and learn those things hands-on and not have to read it out of a book or so that's what we're calling Living Cultural Center. And I think it all stemmed from our collaboration on the co-design of our culturally inspired homes. And just to mention about the homes a little bit briefly, I wanted to talk about in the initial plans, we were planning for the houses to be totally off-grid. I think that we came very close to that, from the rice straw bale or the hay, geothermal, earth and plaster, solar panels. Our metal roof is a rainwater catch system, green and gray water systems. Just to mention a few that off the top of my head that I could think of. And the most important part of that home was the culturally inspired part. Not only are all of those elements connected to Mother Earth, but the design in the house represents our traditional roundhouses. And I think that was the most important part to me, was to represent that, and just the comfort of home and always be in your home. So
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And we're gonna hear more about the education. And I know the Pinot-Laville-Pomo Nation have been evolving greatly in their education initiatives. So things has been moving significantly in the past 12 years, and we'll be hearing more from Joe on it on Thursday afternoon. And we'll have also the Star School presenting, which is a fully off-grid school, and presenting at the beginning the challenges of being totally off-grid.
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I'll be on that one too.
Great. So thanks a lot for joining us, Angela.
Thank you.
And also for Michelle. And I think we're moving to Carletta.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll give people one more minute to join us again. Yell, I logged off and came back in. So will you please make me a co-host again?
Sorry, yeah, let me.
Very much. Everything was completely frozen.
I had to do that too. So I probably lost co-host status.
Okay.
You're the host, Alice, so you should be. Let me exit full screen here.
So my Fuse login is still a co-host. It's just the Kara Shopa login that needs to be co-host again, please. Thanks for working on that. I appreciate it. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder, this session is called Indigenous Food, Energy, Water Systems, Best Practices and Innovations. And we're hearing from each of the NRTs, that's the National Research Traineeship Programs, about their collaborations and programs. So next up is Dr. Carletta Chief and Benita Litson with the Indigenous Food, Energy, and Water Security Sovereignty NRT collaboration between the University of Arizona and Diné College. Dr. Chief.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here again. Thank you for the honor to share my program on behalf of my team. And this is Indigenous Food, Energy, Water Security, and Sovereignty, which is funded by the National Science Foundation and is in partnership with Diné College. And the PI at Diné College is Benita Litson, who's the director of the Diné College Land Grant Office. She'eya torich eating shle to hana bashishin as a sane dashiche to ye ate in the touching a dashinale. What I said was I'm bitter water. I grew up on the Navajo Nation without electricity or running water. And so I have a personal experience of having no access to electricity or running water. However, I had a really strong cultural upbringing thanks to my parents, and also speak the Navajo language. So this is me, this is who I am, and the work that I do is really driven by my upbringing and my identity. The Navajo Nation is the second largest tribe in the United States, and it has the largest land base across the United States, and it's located in the Southwest. It spans the states of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. The Navajo Nation is a sovereign nation. They have the rights and powers to govern their own land, people, and health and education. And so the University of Arizona is located in Tucson, which is in southern Arizona. And we drive approximately 6 hours to get up to the Navajo Nation. And we do these trips quite often and frequently as we work with Diné College. Diné College is the oldest tribal college in the United States and the largest tribal college in the United States. And they have 2-year, 4-year programs and have extensive work and research and education with their own people. The vision of the Indigenous Food, Energy, Water, Security, and Sovereignty is to develop a workforce and graduate students that will be able to have skills in food, energy, and water, but also be able to have an intercultural awareness where they're able to work with Indigenous communities and developing communities in a culturally sensitive way, and to be able to develop and design technologies to meet food, water, and energy insecurities. Our cohort is very diverse, and we partner with the Indigenous Sloan Scholar Program, where we're able to also recruit more Native Americans that are pursuing STEM graduate degrees, and also leverage the funding that we have because the Sloan Foundation can also provide funding for Native American graduate students. But the makeup of our cohort is about half Native American, half minorities, and half male and female. Our website is located here, and so I'll share this website later. So the goal of our
sorry,
cohort,
we're not seeing your slides.
okay. Can you see it now?
No.
Sorry. Thank you for letting me know. Can you see my slides? Are you
Not
able to
yet.
see my slides?
Not yet.
Okay. It says I'm sharing, but first.
This happened to Alice the other day, where she was signed in from 2 different places, and she was sharing from one sign in, but not from the other sign in. So I wonder if you're
Okay.
sharing.
All right. If you want to go ahead and do announcements or something, and I can log off and log back on.
Or perhaps
Okay.
send your slides to Cara.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you log off and log on? And if you'd like to send them, that would be great too.
Okay.
And then
All right.
have a
I'll
discussion.
do that now. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Carlotta. Maya, you had put something in the chat. Would you like to talk about that?
Oh, I think we did already.
You did? Okay, sorry, I missed that. I was too busy logging off and logging back on.
Yeah, the Living Culture Center, and I see Angela is still here. Just to mention to Angela that we're going to have a Q&A afterwards, so it would be great.
Oh, that comment, yeah, that's great. And I think we've also found that communities have asked us for, assistance with that type of thing. And I have a colleague who's one of our faculty mentors who's doing this heritage labs. And so I think, how do you leave, those are long-term things that you also can help work on. So I really like that.
Yale, maybe you could talk about how it came about. I mean, one concern we have with the Living Cultural Center and how to do it remotely in coronavirus land is Yale actually ran a competition and got people around the world to contribute ideas for that Living Cultural Center.
Oh, wow.
So in a way, the research was looking at the designers and the design process, and the Living Culture Center was a product, and it offered the community just a variety of ideas, and the community there were Angela and other from the community were the jury for these ideas, and it gave them, it's not that one of these solutions will be built, but it gave a plethora of ideas, and they can look at it, at that portfolio of different ideas for the same center, and think, okay, we like this part on that project and this part on one project. And whenever they're ready, they can move forward with those ideas. So it is indeed, like you said, Maya, a very long-term project and one of these big initiatives that will take time.
So I see Carletta's back on and sharing her screen.
Started screen sharing.
It's blank for me. I don't know about everybody.
It says I need the host.
Oh, so let me.
So that's interesting because
you are co-host.
You're sharing your screen. Huh.
I'm listed as 2 people here.
Yes.
I think.
Okay, I'm making the second Carletta. Oh, I don't have privileges to make you a co-host.
Yale, I think you have to do that.
I don't see. Oh, I see now. Co-host. I just did that. Can you try again, Coletta?
Okay, there we go. Can you see my screen?
No, why don't you start over?
You can't see my screen?
No, it's a black.
It says you're screen sharing, but it's blank right now. Maybe you can stop and start again.
Okay.
It could have.
Can you see my screen?
No.
Okay.
Did you send your slides to Cara?
Okay, I will.
Okay, thanks, Carlotta. And maybe if you sign off from both locations.
It would have been nicer to be at Diné College and not having to Zoom. But at the same time, we wouldn't be able to host that many people, and certainly not the flexibility for people to come in and out in different days. So something to have in mind when we consider the different option and the limitation of technology.
Indeed. So I don't know about everybody else, but my computer is frozen on Carlotta.
On Coletta, yeah.
Well, I wonder if as host, you could just stop participants sharing, because as co-host, I'm not having success with that.
Okay, let's
So, and I'll get that slide deck up as soon as it comes through.
Angela, are you there?
Oh, something's happening.
I'm now shared my screen, but so hopefully that took over.
I'm here. I'm here. Just not video. I don't know. I'm having difficulties, I think, on my end too.
So we had a question for you. Elena Duran, you had a question. Do you want to ask?
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing all the work that you have been doing together between UC Berkeley and the Pinot Pomo Nation. I have been inspired by the co-design process that was that happened some years ago, and by seeing the pictures and hearing the narratives from everyone involved, I saw that there was a big community participation in the co-design workshop. And I was just wondering what would it take to get the community involved and engage in future co-research, co-design processes and workshops?
I think it's mostly us here at the tribe doing the footwork to engage the community. That's kind of how it happened with the houses that we co-designed. It's a lot of push on our end to get them involved.
I think it often was also motivated by an actual project. So some projects I think are more attractive for the whole community, for each of us to be involved in, and to find what really motivates people is a challenge also.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to be rude. I'd like to interrupt. The slide deck is now in the shared Google Drive, and I am trying to get it up, but I don't have screen sharing privileges from this particular, from my IndigiFEWS login, which is where I need to share from. So if one of
Okay, let me make you co-host again. Is that better now?
It is. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Angela was right in the middle of a sentence. If we could let her finish it.
Very sorry about that. I apologize.
I can chat with Elena later too.
Okay, thank you. Maybe during the other session, the education session.
Yes.
Carletta, you're on.
It's still showing just a black screen for me.
Oh, really?
I see. I
I'm
see
here.
the slides.
Oh, you guys are seeing it? Okay, let me leave and come back in then.
I cannot see this.
Someone has multiple screens. It may be that it's sharing a different screen from the one we're able to see.
Really?
So
Okay.
what do we do about this?
I'm not seeing it either.
Oh,
Just
Kara,
to let you know.
okay.
Because you're on multiple screens, Kara, I think your IndigiViews
Mm-hmm.
account is taking over, and that's the screen that they're seeing because it's black, and then your camera is connected to your like personal account, the Kara Chopra.
Yes.
You want me to share? I downloaded it. You want me to share?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm back. Could I try sharing my screen again? Just to see if it works.
Yes, please.
Could you allow me
Sure.
to host?
Here I am. My co-host. Do you want to try now, Coletta? Okay.
Does it work? Do you see it?
Can everyone see it?
Yes, it's not on presentation mode though.
Yeah.
I cannot see it.
Yeah, neither me. Okay.
Can others see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone who cannot see it?
This is Perry. I can't see it.
I cannot see it.
Huh. Boy, that's weird.
I think if you have a slower internet connection, it might still be loading. That's what mine is doing. Mine is slower, and it's still on a loading screen where it looks black.
Okay.
I actually left the meeting and I logged back on and I can see it now.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Valerie.
Likewise, that worked for me as well.
That might be a trick. And I had to do that already twice.
Well, I suggest we continue.
Yes, I think that would be a great idea.
Okay.
So we'll do our best. Carletta, please.
Okay. I apologize for that. Thank you, Maya, for letting me know my slides weren't showing. Let me try to remember where I left off. But basically, the University of Arizona Indigenous Food, Energy, Water Security grant funded by the National Science Foundation is in partnership with the college. So our goal is to provide a unique on-site research and training opportunity for master's and PhD students that bridges engineering, social, and physical sciences. So we aim to provide a transdisciplinary education for our trainees in that this transdisciplinary experience happens at all levels, from their coursework to their research, to being immersed in the communities that we work with, as well as allowing that melding to happen within their own research. Our team is extensive, and want to acknowledge all their hard work in making this program possible. We have faculty with expertise in water engineering, science, management, including education, as well as all areas of engineering. We also have 2 individuals who work for our program, including Car Duncan, who's the program coordinator, and Tord Anderson, the outreach coordinator, and Jennifer Fields, the evaluator. We work with the Diné College, primarily with Benita Litson and Don Robinson and Perry Charlie as well. So this diagram just shows the number of students we have that is overseen and advised by each of the core faculty member. But we also have extensive faculty outside of our core faculty that are the primary advisors of our trainee. And we also have trainees that are not funded by NSF, but are part of our program as they have other fellowships that support their education. The training components of our IndigiFEWS is composed as follows. The students have their major coursework within their own major, but in addition, their research is focused on food, energy, water systems. They also will do an internship. Many of our students were supposed to do internships this summer, but they were not able to due to COVID-19. We developed a FEWS PhD minor that they have to take at least 2 courses in and minor in if they're a PhD student. Professional development, cultural immersion, participation in a pilot project, and their own research. We start out the cohort each year with the orientation. We welcomed our first cohort in 2018. And we had a smaller group come in last year. And then this year we're getting another new cohort. So we have them in staggered phases. They come to campus and they get introduced to our program, including the laboratories of our core faculty. And then they also learn about their ongoing research that we're involved in. The PhD minor that we established at the U of A took extensive effort to do so, but we're very glad to have this available not only to our students, but also to students across campus who may be interested in FEWS, as well as working with Indigenous communities. So they take a course with these emphasis in systems, which is an ABE course in Food, Water, Energy Nexus, as well as a unit operations course, which we developed and we first offered this past spring, which is kind of like a capstone course, but it's called Energy Efficient Unit Operation Project Design. They also do a fundamentals course, for example, understanding material selection for the environment as it relates to photovoltaics. And then finally, a society course in Indigenous studies. We provided a pathway for the students to do this minor in a hard STEM as well as a soft STEM, because we also have students that are not coming from engineering or science, but they have are doing a major in American Indian Studies or education. So this allows them to still fully participate in completing that PhD minor. We have a seminar course that we have the students take each year, and it allows them to connect with our faculty and training them to be transdisciplinary, as well as get training in science communication, in teaching, and also in cultural sensitivity. The new course that we develop is Chemi 514, Sustainable Water Supplies for Remote Communities. And this class was taught by Dr. Byron Hempel. And I wanted to share an example of what the students did. They were asked to problem solve this challenge of food, FEWS insecurity in Indigenous communities. And this project presentation was conducted by Michael Anderson, Marissa Gonzalez, Nikki Tooley, and Becca Waller, called Hard Rock's Tough People. And I hope they're on the line right now. They did an excellent presentation and have also been presenting it in other classrooms. But what they did was really decolonize the FEWS concept into the Navajo language. And so using Navajo concepts of food, energy, water system, as Avery Denny was stating earlier in the blessing, he was talking about these concepts that already exist in Navajo culture and language. And so they approached the problem using a Navajo philosophy. They also produced a pamphlet that was more culturally sensitive than the ones that we have, that use Navajo language, that use the Navajo concept of FEWS, that would help a Navajo citizen understand what we are doing. They also incorporated the Navajo cultural design into their project design, particularly with a greenhouse that was based on the Navajo hogan. And so it's shaped in the octagonal shape, and then also provides the cultural spaces according to the orientation of the home in terms of making it into an educational environment. And so the FEWS system is off-grid, where the water is pumped up from a local water source, treated in a system and stored in a storage system, powered by a solar array, and the extra energy is stored in a battery system. And then the water is connected to grow the plants in the greenhouse. So these are the slides that they came up with in their design. And this is a typical hogan on the Navajo Nation, but now is a greenhouse. And so they talked a lot about how the Navajo concept of teaching and education is really placed within the hogan, and that would be something that would be considered in terms of the orientation and the type of education that's done in the solar hogan teaching greenhouse. Our students are also immersed in the Navajo community through various events and activities. For example, on spring break, we took them to the Navajo Nation, where they met with Navajo leaders, talked to water and natural resources managers. And then they also talked to community members who shared their own experiences and ideas for solution. So the idea is that the students really get to know the community in this 1 week experience, but also really decolonize their own way of doing science, and really letting the community lead in those discussions so that they can understand how it is for solutions to be community-led instead of us coming in and just providing a solution. Another thing that the students learned in this immersion is that the Navajo people have their own way of problem solving. And this is the problem solving concept based on the Diné fundamental philosophy. As Avery Denny was stating earlier, this is the process, and Diné College really teaches their own students to do science in the Navajo way of this problem solving. So we also enforce that in their immersion experience. But as at one teaching, one of the community members said that they need their own data to communicate to the world from their own perspectives, the challenges that they face, and create their own solutions. So we try to emphasize that in training our students. Through this experiential learning and immersion, we were able to develop a video that Nikki Tooley is highlighted in. She is a graduate trainee from the Navajo Nation, and her father is an environmental leader on the Navajo Nation. And so we went to his hogan, and he did a lot of the training for us in decolonizing our science. And this was recently presented at the 2020 STEM for All Video Showcase. And we were able to win first place in that virtual showcase for overall presentation. I encourage you to view this video. It's only 3 minutes. We also have a lot of opportunities for our students to do other types of outreach to the young people. Our students are role models for other Native youth out there. Our trainees, Chris Yazzie is coming from Diné College. He did his undergraduate there, transferred to NAU in engineering, and now is at U of A pursuing his PhD. Manuelito Chief is a graduate of the Winter Rock High School, and he is now at the U of A in our program. So both of them serve as role models to young people. And so whenever we get opportunities to share our work and the projects they're doing, we take the opportunity to do so. So this is at Tuba City High School. We also do a Native Voices in STEM, which is open to all of campus, because we don't want to keep this to ourselves. We want to share this with the greater U of A campus and also beyond U of A. So we created the seminar series to stimulate that dialogue about FEWS in Indigenous communities. And we invite experts from these communities to talk about their work. So we not only engage in dialogue with others outside of our group, but also train our students as well at the same time. The research theme that we're focusing on is the development of novel and sustainable solutions for off-grid production of safe drinking water, and using the brine from that to grow food, in using controlled environmental agricultural systems. So our faculty are using this research theme to unify their work and allow that transdisciplinary research to be conducted across the various research areas and with our students. So for example, we have Becca Waller, who's in biosystems engineering, working on greenhouses, working with Mike Anderson, who's in electrical engineering, whose expertise is in material science, to talk about how solar can be used in greenhouse technologies. Another example is the challenge of the cost of water on the Navajo Nation. Because many people have to haul water, they end up paying a lot more for water than the typical person who's connected to the system. So through the development of this off-grid nano filtration system, we can begin to provide, develop solutions to have more cost-effective ways to get access to water. So we were able to take this system to Diné College. So it's currently sitting at Diné College. And we use it as a tool within that college where we're training their students how to operate while they're learning about energy and while they're learning about water and greenhouse technology. So we were at Diné College last summer doing a week-long training on this, and the students presented that information to the community. So not only are our trainees being trained, but they're also training the Diné College students, being mentors, and learning how to in that training teaching space. So the control greenhouse systems look like this, and Murat Casera is the lead on this aspect. And his student here is Becca Waller. And so the idea is to find ways to have increase the efficiency and production of crops in an off-grid system. And so Murat has been working with Benita and the Tsaili Wheatfields Water Users Association to help them develop their own greenhouse. I'm not sure if Benita Litson is on the line. Okay, so I'll go ahead and continue unless somebody from the Net College would like to take her place, Don or Perry.
I I don't know what to say, Carletta, but I did hear Benita say she was having trouble connecting a little earlier today. So that's probably what's going on.
Okay. All right, great. Did you want to say anything about the Net College, or we like me to just go
Well,
ahead and...
yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity. It's actually a fantastic opportunity. I can't overstate it. That we have here at Diné College to work with you on so many levels. The technologies that you share with us, the greenhouse, the water filtration system, the electrical, solar panel energy, the opportunities that it affords us to learn from those and train our students to have them participate, the possibility of them transferring to U of A or U of A transferring your, we've talked for years, two or 3 years now about U of A, giving us content to put into our classes or to have a certificate program in FEWS. And the sky's the limit. We're talking about bachelor's and master's programs in FEWS and engineering, making this a focus of our engineering program, both the associate's degree and the bachelor's degree that we're thinking about planning. In fact, Fred Boyd, I saw Fred was on the workshop a little while ago. I don't know if you're still on, Fred. Fred is writing a large grant proposal as water, with water as the central theme. And we're collaborating with Bob, what's his last name?
Arnold.
Bob Arnold.
Bob Arnold, sorry. Yeah, Dr. Arnold, we're collaborating, Fred's collaborating to bring his, to actually, his system right now, that picture you showed that we worked with last summer with our interns and is right now over in land grant. That's a large sort of a chapter house kind of size for multifamily use or for use at a well, one of our water wells. But we have an idea, Bob has an idea, and we agree to have domestic single family units available that are reasonably priced that we can offer people out in the rural areas. I personally am really excited about the greenhouse. I think we just have to start working on that. We already have been having gardening as a diabetes project for exercise and good food for our families here on the reservation. Dr. Mark Bauer has been doing that for years. And the greenhouse is another step in that direction. It's a fantastic idea. And I want to have a tomato greenhouse myself. Yeah, and actually organic tomato greenhouses or organic food from greenhouses is a great financial opportunity for people, for families to engage in, to sell produce. So, and then the solar, we have NTUA has a solar program, but there's issues with it, as with all solar programs. But the U of A solar program is something that I'd like to see integrated with our land grant training and engineering training programs. We've been collaborating for 3 years now, and I think we have one more year to go. You have been coming up and training our students, and we've had a summer program of training, one full week of training with the water on one day, the greenhouse on another day, the solar on another day, and then integration on other days. And actually this workshop was supposed to be 2 days during that week of FEWS training for our summer interns. And yeah, you can see this picture, you can see the water filtration unit and Bob there and our students from last summer. This was also a community program. We had a community lecture and presentation of the water system. and the Saley Wheatfields chapter has a water and agricultural committee. I don't know what they're called, Carletta, but Bonita is part of that, Bonita's sister and the local people here. And so it's just a really good opportunity for us in many ways. And can't thank you enough. And Carletta's been working with Dene College since the beginning of time, since I've been here 11 years, and we'll continue to work together. Thanks, Carletta.
Thank you. We also are able to do training with Dene College as well. So we invite the Dene College as well as Navajo community members to come to U of A and to participate in the various workshops that we do ongoing through the extension program. So for example, Marat's U of A CAC, they had an intensive hydroponics workshop that the Dene community members were able to participate in.
And can I say one other thing? You know, Larry Moore, who was in one of your pictures previously, Larry last summer collaborated with one of your scientists, can't remember her name. She was doing an algae growth program to use the saline water off of the water filter in a way to use that saline water, not just to, you know, put it in the ground. And he got first place in Hawaii at the SACNAS conference for his group in environmental health. So, you know, that the participation, the participation with U of A is really excellent, and we thank you very much.
We're really proud of Larry to win that. It was very competitive and was great to see him get recognized. So I just want to conclude with present day in the COVID-19 pandemic that's currently hitting the Navajo Nation. And it has really amplified the lack of access to food, energy, water security. For example, when a person is infected, it makes it even more challenging because they can't, you know, get access to water. And so it can be really terrible for them. You know, it's life and death situation. And so, so we find our work even more important, especially also when it comes to food insecurities. There are only 13 grocery stores across the Navajo Nation, and people have to drive to get to the grocery stores, but to minimize the infection and transmission, the Navajo Nation and other relief efforts have been delivering food to people so that they don't have to drive so far to get food. And so our program has responded to this impact as well. Our hearts go out to our partners and to the Navajo communities that we've been working with. And Marat Casera donated 800 pounds of produce to the Navajo Nation back in, I believe it was April. And so we're able to contribute in our own way in terms of the research that our students are doing in terms of production. They were able to give that directly to families in need. In addition, we were able to get some additional funds from the Agnes Nelms Howry Foundation, and Vicky Karanakola and Bob Arnold are leading that effort. We're able to develop 2 more of these off-grid solar nanofiltration systems that we would like to, one to be developed for Navajo Technical University, and then the other one for a chapter house. And the next steps for us was to work on the hoop house at Dene College this summer, but that's delayed because of COVID-19. But we would like to continue to work on making that unified system so that we can address the food, energy, water security. We also have been in discussions with the Navajo Nation about this off-grid system. and its potential for use and on and into the future, if one of their entities would be interested in owning it and taking off with it. So again, thank you for this time. I apologize for the technical difficulties, and I hope my presentation made sense. Thank you. I'll take some questions ahead.
I'm also going to launch the poll at this moment.
Thank you. At the end of every session, we've been launching a poll. This is an anonymous poll, and we're very grateful for your feedback. It helps us make adjustments and helps us get a lot of information about our sessions. Dr. Chief, thank you so much. And Dr. Robinson, thank you for representing the Diné College portion of that. I know that not everybody can stay for question and answers, but I think our PIs are willing to stay on for a little bit, so I'd like to allow that. But for the people who do have to log off now, I'd like to remind you that in 1 hour at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we will be back for our second session of the day. And this session is titled Diné Traditional Food Energy Water Systems Frameworks. And Perry H. Charlie and David Begay will be speaking, and I encourage you not to miss that. It will be very interesting. So thank you for participating today. Please stay for Q&A. I know Maya Trotz has been typing several questions into the chat. Maya, I'm not sure if you'd like to unmute yourself and start asking some of those questions. And then of course, Elena Duran Lopez also has some questions.
Thank you. I had a quick question for Carlotta. That was a lovely presentation by all and you and the Berkeley team. Question, Carlotta, in terms of wastewater reuse versus groundwater or saline groundwater, what are the opportunities there or challenges from a cultural perspective in terms of resource recovery from wastewater?
Thank you, Maya, for that question. So the benefits of it is that you know, it provides multiple uses and especially for crop growth and production. The challenges are that the groundwater or sources may not be always locally available. Say a home is remotely located, so they might not have easy access to, say, groundwater sources or surface water sources. And the challenge also is that there is some challenges related to water reuses, particularly when it relates to sacred places and sites. For example, the ski resort near Flagstaff, they were using reclaimed water to make snow, and on a mountain that is one of the 4 sacred mountains of the Navajo Nation. And so that's something that we know of and that we are very aware of and considerate of. And so we are actually working through understanding and making sure that you know, this is culturally appropriate. But as far as we know, so far the community is open to it because it's not necessarily usage on a sacred site.
Thanks.
I have some questions, Dr. Carlotta. I was wondering how transferable your program would be to a different locality, like in the Pacific Northwest. Have you had very many students that have had less focus on like hard engineering and more on like natural water storage via wetlands or and like wildlife and fisheries management, and then like wave technology as like the 3, you know, food, energy, and water systems use?
That's a very good question. I'm not too familiar with the Pacific Northwest, and the water challenges facing them. I know that, you know, there's a lot of climate change impacts related to sea level rise and the warming temperatures of streams that impact the, you know, the livelihoods of the tribal communities up there. But I think that our model, it is transferable in the educational aspect in decolonizing approaches of FEWS systems. And so we hope that, you know, through our program, the other universities will take it on and apply it to their own training of graduate students and working with tribal communities. So I hope that that's what I would hope, you know, others would do in other areas across the US.
So kind of along that line, where did you start building this program specifically? Was it more focused like at the tribal college level with Diné College? You know, because there's like Northwest Indian College, and maybe UW could make a partnership, or some of the tribal colleges in Montana and University of Montana, things like that. Or was it more at the university level, reaching down and saying,
Okay, yes, thank you for your question. So I built a lot of this work on my partnerships and trainings that I did with Diné College. And so what had happened is I got my PhD at the U of A in Vado zone hydrology. And even when I was at Stanford, I really wanted to do my PhD related to my own tribe. But when I got to U of A, I wasn't able to do that. And when I went to do my postdoc at Desert Research Institute, I was still looking for how my science could make an impact. And so during my time there, I had an opportunity to do outreach through a lysimeter facility that I was part of. And through that, I was able to connect with local tribes and begin to do science translation with tribal communities, particularly on climate change and how it's impacting their waters. And then as part of that, I reached out to Diné College because I'm from the Navajo Nation, and I said, hey, is there an opportunity for us to help out and to train? We're educators. And so they said yes. And that was, I think in 2008 or 9, that I started working with Diné College, and I brought my DRI collaborators, and they had expertise in limnology, ecosystems engineering, in Vado zone hydrology, and I brought them out to Diné College, and it was like a 9-hour drive, and they stayed there for a week, and we trained the tribal college students. So then as part of that, I just kept doing that every summer. I kept training, and I kept trying to see where I could provide education to tribal college students. And so that education, training, and outreach just built upon each other, and community-based projects started to arise from that training, where the community said, we're really concerned about contamination from the mines in our waters. So then I worked with the U of A Superfund research program to do some research on that. And then the Gold Key mine spill happened. And again, we brought together a team to work on that. And then now with COVID-19, we're again trying to do that in terms of bringing together people on campus that have expertise to address a community-based problem. So it definitely requires a lot of trust building and working for a long time with the community. So for me, it was through tribal college aspect of training that all of this came to fruition.
Thank you, Carletta. I think Sherry Johnson had a question in a similar vein. Sherry, would you like to unmute yourself and speak to that?
Okay, so I'm not sure that Sherry's there, but I did read her question. Oh, there she is. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you may have answered it. You talked about the training, and the questions arose from the training from the community. And what I think I'm asking is the development of the initial research questions in the science arena. How is that considered? And I saw your DNA problem solving circular. How is that similar to a problem developed from a community and a science research question? Like, do
Sure. So the way that we provide, the way that we try to do the community-based research at the university is we listen. We do a lot of listening. And I think as Western scientists, that's sometimes hard for us to do because we're taught to debate and critique each other. But I asked my team to just listen, let the people say what their concerns are. And then when you have the opportunity to speak, then you can provide inquiry into that. So we hold these, what we call listening sessions, and we hold it in partnership with a community organization and or tribal college. So we really rely on our community experts like Perry, Charlie, Ali Yazzie, and Larry Emerson. These elders and cultural experts, they know their environment, they know their land, their waters, their challenges. And so we look to them and we listen to their leadership and then listen to the community and see what their highest concerns are. So in that way, the community, the research is community led and community driven. For example, one time Larry Emerson told our team that we needed to decolonize our approach. And that's when he talked about this Diné fundamental philosophy of problem solving. So it's very similar to, I mean, it's parallel or is analogous to the scientific method. So the process is, you know, defining your problem, that's critical thinking, tahakis. And then ina, which is thinking about solutions that can help address your challenge. And I'm missing one other, but the final step is sihasin, which is reflecting on the solutions that you've developed, but then going through that process again. So it's a iterative process. So if your solutions are need to be revised, and you can go back based on how you see the solution being effective. So that's already in the Navajo problem solving. And so we listen to our cultural experts and elders that are working with our group to make sure that we follow that and don't impose something else on them that is not accepted.
Hi, this is Fred Boyd from Diné College. I just want to chime in here a little bit. For those of you who aren't from the Southwest, it may not be obvious what a big deal the Navajo Nation is in Arizona and New Mexico. The Navajo Nation is something like 25% of the land area of the state of Arizona. And the Navajo are strong, powerful people. And they have advocated for themselves for decades. And the Navajo are integrated into the educational processes at certainly the Arizona State Schools. And Diné College is in the process of transitioning from 5 years ago, we were a 2-year school. In the last 5 years, we've developed 4-year programs, and now we're developing graduate programs with our first one in biology. hopefully coming online in 2 or 3 years. So Carletta is one of a cohort of outstanding Navajo scientists who are contributing throughout the United States as well as on the Navajo Nation. And I would at this point put on my hat briefly for my chairmanship of the faculty search committees and invite any of you who are interested in spending time at Diné College, whether you're on sabbatical or whether you're young faculty who are wanting to start a career in the context of the Diné, or if you're winding down your careers and are looking for a wonderful teaching experience to sort of put a capstone on your career. So if you're interested, please reach out to me or anybody at Diné College or Corletta, and we'd love to engage with you in those kinds of conversations.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. If any of the PIs wants to respond to that, we have time, and then we have a question from Elena, and I would like to give her time to ask her question that relates to all of the NRTs.
I would respond to Fred's offer, because we've seen it with our partner in the University of Virgin Islands, where they don't have an engineering program. And this idea of, is there a possibility for us to train our graduate students so that they can spend a semester or 2 semesters helping to teach or train or mentor students on the ground there. So I would say not just let us consider it for faculty looking for sabbatical, but can we integrate it with graduate training programs so that our students get, not just working in community, but also working on mentoring and training other young minds in places that can give them this experience and have much larger minority populations to serve. So I think something for us to consider. There's so many things coming out from this. I think that we have many opportunities to think about future proposals.
I think that's a great idea. And I also like the idea.
What happened to Alice?
Alice, we cannot hear you.
Alice?
Oh, Alice is back. We lost you, Alice.
We lost you, Alice.
I'm having problems with my sound. I was saying it's a great idea, but we could make it a two-way street on that, as well as having an exchange program between Diné College and some of our institutions as well.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to open the floor to Elena Duran Lopez for her question.
Thank you. Well, first I wanted to thank everyone for the wonderful presentations, and then I wanted to share ask 2 questions that I've been struggling with during my PhD journey, and I would love to hear what the different people who presented today think. The first one is about struggles that I have around what are our roles as researchers in communities that are not our own. So in my case, being from the Global South, I know that sometimes even the best intentioned initiatives might have negative repercussions in the communities we work with. So I'd love to hear about your thoughts around this issue. And also, I wonder if you have some strategies that you use to engage in this kind of reflexive practice. And the second question I have, and this one has gotten me stuck a lot, is regarding co-design and co-research processes. So especially considering that different people have different definitions and different ways of implementing them, I wonder about the details of how co-design and co-research processes should be implemented so that they enable tribes' inherent sovereignty and self-determination.
I could start a response on that. I struggle with that too, Elena, so I think it's a great question. I'm from the Global South also, but recognizing I'm coming, especially when returning to the Caribbean or even to communities here in Tampa, I'm coming from a position of power, having a PhD in engineering. I think working with anthropologists is an interesting balance because they study these dynamics. And so it's interesting to see the two fields where it's sort of you want to do a pilot just to show this new approach to more sustainable ways of getting water or treating wastewater. And then having the anthropologists who don't necessarily want to do a pilot or be part of putting in something that could have repercussions. And so I think that in itself has been an interesting process for our students. And I think we all sort of recognize and reflect on our position in terms of working with communities. And a lot of it stems down to finding community partners who are also interested in this type of approach, you know, this idea of piloting, reflecting, did it work, did it not work? And realizing that maybe we have some access to resources in terms of financial and so on that we could bring to the table, but really building on ideas that community have been trying to or working on doing to begin with.
Thank you.
I could jump in the response to the co-design process. I always recommend that the process be designed with the community members. And so Angela James talked about it, that when we first met with her, she thought it was a little strange asking so many questions about how to run our workshop. But she came to appreciate that she had agency in being able to define the boundaries and the activities that we took, you know, that we worked with her on.
I would also say it's really important to have community partners and to be immersed in the community. So I really like Maya's offer in training her students to be teachers there in that college. I think the best way to learn and to gain trust is to be immersed in the community where you're living there and you experience what the challenges are, and then you're listening to teachings from the community partners and experts, so that you're understanding the people more and building that trust. That's so critical, even before you even have a project, way before you even have a project, so that you're defining those challenges with the community and finding opportunities to get grants or explore different ways to address those solutions. And I think many times as scientists, we have we are guilty of helicopter research, where we have a grant, and this is a challenge for many universities. They get the funds to do the research, and then they go out to the community, say, hey, I have these funds and now I'm going to work with you. That's not the right way to go about it. You should already have been working with that community and coming up with those research questions long before you even apply for the grant.
Yeah, and I should say a few things also. Carletta, you're very right. And I'm a Belagana, as we say. I'm a white person on Navajo land. And you have to have, first of all, you have to have a natural interest in what you're doing. You have to be here. It can't just be theoretical, And I have mentors. You have to have mentors, and you absolutely have to listen to the people. It's Navajo culture. I've studied different cultures. My PhD was in Vedic science, and I've spent 20, 30 years studying a completely different culture, non-Western, very similar to Native American. And you have to understand that paradigms of cultural knowledge are completely different. they do not, they're very similar in the fact that reality is reality, right? Hot is hot and cold is cold. But the underlying concept of the theory and the practice of life can be very different. So, and you absolutely, my teacher, Maharshi, he says, we are believers. Everything is true. Everything that everyone says is true. And you have to understand that. And then for Navajo, Perry Charlie and Carletta and my Navajo medicine man, Avery Denny, they're very good friends of mine. I'm married to a Navajo. This is Kaylee, my granddaughter. And, you just have to be invested as much as you can. But absolutely, there's this constant reminder that you are an in-law, you are a Belagana, and you have to listen. And that's okay with me. You can't be here to try to control or to be smarter, because you're not, and you can't. And all I want to do is help. And so that's the way that you get things done and help is just have that attitude. That's what I experience. And a lot of successful non-Navajos, that's a good way to be successful. And every way that you can work, as your feedback to yourself, was that a successful technique or a way to interact? Then you just keep following that and be adaptable. And it's a wonderful thing to do, to help other cultures and other people and realize that we're all the same, really. This pandemic, as bad as it is, has brought us all together as a world community, hasn't it? And we all see that we have very similar, we're all the same. And also, and then I just go back to the beginning of what I said, you have to just want to do where you are, be where you are, and do what you want to do. I wanted to be with Native Americans since I was a little kid. And I lived in Northern Ohio. There wasn't a Native American within 100 miles. So I don't know, why I wanted to be here, but I did, and I just followed through with that very naturally, I would say. So yeah, so keep it up and listen and just be yourself and have a good time. It's thank you for your question.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for participating in the first session of the day. And I think this is a good segue to wrap it up, if that's all right with everybody. If there are no final comments, shout if I'm speaking over you on that. At 1 o'clock Pacific time, which is in 30 minutes, we will begin our second session with Perry H. Charlie and David Begay discussing Dene traditional food, energy, water systems frameworks. So I invite you to stay on the Zoom if you prefer, or log back in 30 minutes. I think we'll leave it up and running just in case people start joining early. All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Cara.
Yes, thank you to all of our presenters today and for all of the questions that are helping advance this conversation.